where we are going to where we are going to have the 75 for 75 program. 13th of September we are starting. This 75 for 75 program will be depicting, each day will be depicting the glorious years that we have come across for last 75 years. Even though we are in the 77th year, all of you are aware that because of the pandemic, we could not celebrate the Platinum Jubilee. Well, I welcome you back again to your own alma mater. You are all proud alumni of SCV Medical College, Cuttack. I take the opportunity through this platform to extend a warm welcome and also request you, please join as a registered alumni. We have got a SCBM, the Alumni Association of SCV Medical College, Cuttack. You can log into the website www.scbmchalumni.in, or you can log into our website from where you can always get into the alumni website, that is www.scbmch.in. I would appreciate if my colleague from the dermatology department, they pass on the website through WhatsApp to other alumni of SCB Medical College, Cuttack. It is indeed a privilege on my part to welcome you again. Without going further, I request our moderator to take over, introduce the speaker and conduct the proceeding. Thanks to all. I welcome you again.
Thank you. Thank you, our Dean, respected Dean and Principal, Professor Dr. Hutta, for that introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, respected professors and esteemed faculty members and all doctors present. Today, on behalf of the SCV Medical College and the Department of Dermatology, I welcome you today to the pre-Platinum Jubilee, the CME on the dermatology. And we have two speakers, and they'll be speaking on Hansen's. As you know, leprosy is a very important part of dermatology. It is always with dermatology, but for the last few years, this has not been much discussed. In fact, it has not been much worked upon on, because probably that WHO had declared it to be eliminated in 2005. But that, on the contrary, leprosy is still there, and leprosy is still there in Orissa. And because you can see that the prevalence rate in Orissa has increased from 1.24 to 1.69 in 2020. So it is very important for us, for you, and for the society at large to know about leprosy and help and be aware of it and help us in its eradication by 2030. And so this immunoprophylaxis, immunotherapy and chemoprophylaxis is the road to zero leprosy. And this will be deliberated by our speaker, Professor Hemanta Kumar Kar. And I would like to say that Odisha is now the second most infected state in India. So Dr. Hemanta Kumar Kara is now the professor and HOD dermatology in KIMS, and he was the former director, dean and HOD dermatology of RML Hospital, New Delhi. He has been a president of the IAL and the president of IATPL, and he has done immense work in leprosy, for which he has authored a book, that is IAL Textbook of Leprosy, which is not only read in India but around the world too. And his work with post prophylaxis and chemoprophylaxis is post-exposure prophylaxis and chemoprophylaxis is very much documented. And he has received many awards, many international and national awards, and has been granted many orations and also WHO fellowships in not only in leprosy, but also in dermatology, dermatosurgery, and sexually transmitted disease. So now I like Dr. Kaura to please kindly share his screen, and all the questions will be put in the chat box at the end of the session.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Hota and Professor Mahanti, for your kind introduction. I'm also proud being an alumni of SC Medical College. I got these opportunities to speak something in front of you. I will talk on immunotherapy and immunoprophylaxis and post-exposure chemoprophylaxis is a roadmap of zero leprosy. Half of my research is in that line in the field of leprosy. So it's a good opportunity for me to speak on this behalf. I must before starting, I must show my this is the as a PG student I joined in 1976 in SC Medical College. I'm just standing behind Professor Harish Chandra Mahanti and all my teachers, Dr. Kiran Bala Madam, Vishnu Madam, Vishnu Sir, and all our senior and junior PG students. You can see the Saraswati Madam here, and all my seniors are all here. I'll go to the next one. If you look into it, now the mainstay of management of leprosy and National Leprosy Eradication Program is multi-drug therapy, MDT in leprosy, which was introduced in 1981. Leprosy is curable with MDT, as we know very well, and currently WHO MDT regimen consisting of 3 drugs, dapsone, rifampicin, and clofazimine, and it is given 6 months for possibly leprosy and 12 months for multivascular leprosy. More than 1,600 million leprosy patients have been cured with MDT in last 20 years since the introduction of this MDT, with a rapid fall of prevalence of leprosy till 2005. But what Dr. Mahanti told very correctly, in the last 15 years, from 2005 to 2020, a very slow fall of new cases has been observed all over the world. And a very slow, if you look into the graph, you can see here the number of new cases in the most impacted countries. These 3 countries, India, Brazil, and Indonesia, these 3 countries want the maximum number of leprosy patients have been detected annually, and almost carries more than 90% of the whole leprosy population of the world in these 3 countries. There is that indicates there is ongoing transmission of ongoing transmission of leprosy bacilli in the community, as evidenced by the slow decline of annual new case detection rate and incidence in the last 15 years following declaration of elimination of leprosy in India in 2005. Because after that only it is integrated with the general health services. There is no more vertical program on leprosy reduction program. What happened after that? There is increase in childhood detection rate. What indicates? It indicates that the active transmission of the microbial leprosy in the community, and there is increase in the grade 2 deformity. That also indicates there is delay in diagnosis of leprosy. Thereby, the patient comes to deformity, maybe because of stigma still there, discrimination is still there. Patients do not come forward voluntarily for diagnosis of leprosy and starting the treatment. So, if you look into the global target for 2030 by WHO, now only 45 countries are free from leprosy, but the target is by 2030, 120 countries should be free from leprosy. There should be 70% reduction in the annual number of new cases and 90% reduction in the rate per million population of new cases with grade 2 deformity. and of course 90% reduction in the rate per million children of new leprosy cases with leprosy. This is the prediction. You can see the of WHO. If we will not do any other intervention, the way now the new cases are coming up, this is the curve. The curve will continue remaining as parallel. We are getting a current global trend. If you look into it, there is a reduction of new cases by only 1.5% every year. So if you continue like that, you cannot achieve anything now, coming 100 years. So the target they gave 2030, you must add something new to our NLP program. Initially, in 2021 to 25, we have to optimize the use of existing tool, whatever available, including the contact tracing. That's the most important factor. And post-exposure prophylaxis, that is single dose reformation, has already been introduced in our program. And most important is active case detection. There are a lot of cases undetected in the village, in the community. We have to do active survey. So what is doing when we find, suppose we find a grade 2 deformity case in the community, in the village, we're searching for the whole population as a whole to see any other indexes is there in there. Or if you find a multivascular cases, suppose lepromatous leprosy or borderline lepromatous leprosy, they only search for the contacts to find out any other index case they are among the contacts or not. This is the 2021 to 25, this program going on. If you go like that, there will be slow decline. But at here, 2026, there are a lot of research proposals, programs are going on, and probably we hope by 2025 we can get a better action. We can get better immunoprophylaxis. We can get chemoprophylaxis, better chemoprophylaxis, and we can activate our present system. Thereby, we can able to still there should be decline of new cases. We can reach around 50,000 at the end of 30. But now we are almost getting 2,000 to 2 lakhs to 2.5 lakhs of new cases every year in the globe. Okay, so let's come to the our work. What exactly I want to speak in addition to early case detection and starting MDT, we need some good diagnostic test for detection of subclinical infection. Our origin subclinical infection. Many of the subclinical infections among the contacts become again clinical cases. How to tackle that situation? We should have a good diagnostic test which we can diagnose the subclinical infection, means positive contact cases to whom we can give the chemoprophylaxis, maybe enhanced chemoprophylaxis. Number one, we should have good immunotherapy, particularly for lepromatous type of leprosy cases when the BI is more than 4+, so that we can combine the immunotherapy along with MDT to make them non-infectious at the earliest and make them BI negative at the earliest. Immunoprophylaxis and chemoprophylaxis, they are the two legs of any program, any national program. Only without immunoprophylaxis, without vaccine, without chemoprophylaxis, we cannot achieve zero any disease in this world. In addition, we must augment the IEC program and stigma reduction. This is still present in our community. People don't come forward voluntarily, reporting to the primary health center, or they don't come to the ASA to show them that I have some patch on the skin, I should be diagnosed, I should be given treatment. They never come forward. Today, one patient, just yesterday, one patient came with me from a long distance from, I think from Banpur. He told me, please give me some medicine here. I told them, you go back to your area where the primary health center is there, they will provide you free treatment. Well, no, I don't want to go. But why? Now, this is stigma still there. My village people will not allow me to stay in the village if they know that I am suffering from leprosy. At this age, after so many 30 years of program, still people are afraid of exposing themselves, telling them rightly that I am suffering from leprosy or I need treatment. That's the problem in this country now. So let's start with the immunotherapy first. Why there is need of immunotherapy in leprosy? As we know, there is complete absence of cell-mediated immune response against leprosy, particularly in lepromatous type of leprosy. There is slow clearance of bacilli or their products from the body of the LLBL patients, and the persistence of the disease activity, even after stopping MDT, after stopping therapy, clinically they are still active, and bacteriologically still they are active, histopathologically they are still active. we can't declare them you are completely cured after this fixed drug regimens. And they require several years for VI to become negative. And another problem we are facing, presence of dead vessel in the body. Even though we kill the bacteria, but the dead vessel remain in the body, they provide a lot of antigens producing reactions and deformities because of neuritis, which you are seeing even after RFT also. Many of the patients come with reaction and deformity and neuritis. The viable bacilli. This is a very unfortunate part is after MDT, after BI becomes completely negative, about 10% of the patients, when we did the skin biopsy and do the mouth footprint inoculation using nude mice, 10% of the bacilli is still alive when skin spheroid negative. So they are the persisters, and when you stop the treatment, they may start multiplying again, and there may be a relapse of the cases. Secondly, the demonstration of ATP in 19% of the bacterial suspension from the skin biopsy, it has been done 2 years, when after completing 2 years of MDT also, it is done by Jalma Agra, they still have active ATP, demonstrative ATP means it's done by viable bacilli. Viable bacilli in the nerves also, they study from Bombay, Mrs. Sethi, she found also viable bacilli in the nerves, in the nerve biopsy specifically. What we see now, more relapse occurs when the BI is more than 4+, and later years of follow-up also. So the relapse is a problem when the BI is very high. Therefore, we just, if we divide immunomodulator, immunotherapy, we have 3 types of immunomodulators. One is drugs, second is agents of Emlepri, third is Mycobacterium with common antigens. We'll discuss one by one. Among the drugs, very often dermatologists use levamisole and zinc as a good immunomodulator. Any type of infection, including leprosy also. In the past, levamisole has been used very often, and so also zinc and among the immunomodulators like agents improving there are certain antigens, there are certain cytokines we can use for improving the lymphocyte macrophage interaction for the missing or deficient factors and cytokines. That's one of them. Gamma interferon has been tried in Noida Institute, Delhi, very often by Professor Indranath as the tried gamma interferon and interleukin also. And of course, these are all long history. Nobody is using this interferon in leprosy no more. I want to speak something about levamisole. It is available in this country. Even when you don't have BCG, when you don't have any vaccine, you want to stimulate the patient's helmet immune response, you can add levamisole in your cases. I have done this study. Levamisole has shown activation of macrophage, which in turn improves the CMI response in LL in earlier 2 vitro studies. We did the study in recalcitrant LL when BI was still more than 2. After 2 years of MDT, we gave 150 milligram levamisole weekly twice for 1 year, along with another 1 year of MDT. We have a placebo group also. What we find in the trial group that is statistically significant rapid bacteriological clearance as compared to control group. That indicates there is some amount of immunomodulation occurs, and there is some amount of improvement of CMI with levamisole also. We also do the levamisole in our wards also, the other bacterial infection, other viral infections also. Okay, let's come to the directly, which is most important for us, antigenically related Mycobacteria immunomodulator, which has, we have number 1 BCG with us, we have number 6 Mycobacterium indicis prani, MIB vaccine with us. Along all this, BCG is commercially available and MW vaccine is also commercially available. So I will go in detail about this, the 6th one, which I have done a study almost last 20 years. This is immunotherapy, immunoprophylaxis study in MW vaccine in leprosy. The study is one of the longest study, 19 years, done by DBT. And the principal investigator was Professor G.P. Talwar, director. He was a professor in biochemistry in Noida Institute of Medical Science, and he invented this MW bacteria as a vaccine. We, the co-investigators, myself and Dr. Mishra Sabdujan, Ashok Mukherjee, ICMR, Rama Mukherjee Rani from National Institute of Immunology, and we have several research officers like Professor Dr. Zahir, Walia, Parida, Sharma, Veena, Raj, Sarat. I must mention their names because they have worked in the last 20 years at different periods of time. Duration is 1986 to 2005, almost 19 years, longest research project of DBT. The financial assistance we got by DBT, almost 4 crores. That is probably, this is the only one project we got maximum number of money, 4 crores for this project. So what is this Mycotonin disease prani, the formerly known as MW? It is a rapidly growing, non-pathogenic, cultivable mycobacteria in NN group 4 shares several antigens with M. leprae and M. tuberculosis. There are a lot of antigens which is common in M. leprae and M. tuberculosis along with MW. So this is a killed vaccine. It's some immunomodulatory effect tested in both vitro and experimental animals and well tolerated and safe with only one blister, a nodule developed when you inject it intradermally after 3 to 4 weeks and it heals with a scar formation. The preliminary study, the pilot study was done in from 86 to 91. So I'll just in this methodology, in this immunotherapy study, we initially do the pilot study, then phase 3, then phase 2, then phase 3 study. In this vaccine group, we took untreated multivessel leprosy patients along with MDT. We give this vaccine 8 doses every 3-month interval up to 2 years, and control group we give only placebo injection with MDT. The MDT given for a minimum period of 2 years, and here in this study we continue MDT till the bacteriological negativity. We evaluated clinically, bacteriologically, histopathologically, immunologically using lepromin test, and follow up also another 5 years after BI becomes negative. That is why it's a very long duration research project. What we find in the pilot study, there is a rapid clinical improvement, accelerated bacteriological clearance in vaccine group. The vaccinated patients had shown distinct histological upgradations also, and sometimes the digranuloma also disappears. 80% of lepromin conversion. This is the most important. Lepromin test we do as a marker of cell-mediated immune response. Almost 80% lepromin conversion in MDT vaccine group, whereas in the BB, BL, LL patient, they are always lepromin is negative. And whereas only 14% in control group. Sometimes in MDT also itself can improve the CMA. So around 14% only MDT group there is a lepromin conversion. 13 out of 17 vaccinated LL patients become RFT, released from treatment in 2 years, whereas only 2 out of 15 in control group. Whenever you give a vaccine, there is quick BI clearance and patient becomes quickly bacteriological negative. Then the second, this is the phase 2 trial. Phase 2 trial was published in Vaccine, addition of immunotherapy with MW vaccine to multi-drug therapy, benefit the multivessel leprosy patients. And this trial also we find we took a immunotherapy group of almost 93 MB patients, and in control group almost 107 MB leprosy patients. And the same, what we find in the pilot trial, also a phase 2 trial, we also find the similar result. There is bacteriological clearance, significantly more rapid in vaccinated patients. There is accelerated clinical regression of lesions after vaccination, and lepromin conversion almost 100% in BB, 71% BL, and 70% in LL. A significant number of immunized patients shows histological improvement also. So fortunately, this vaccine didn't precipitate in type of neuritis or deformity. That's one safety point of view. This is very, very important also. Then the final phase 3 trial among the about 150 trial patients and 145 control group untreated BLL patients. This published a leprosy review in 2000. The final report, summary of this MW immunotherapy trial, the fall in clinical score and bacteriological indices significantly more in vaccinated patients from 6 months onwards till 2 to 3 years in therapy. And the number of LL and BL patients released from therapy RFT following attainment of skin cell negativity at 2 years. You can see here 84 out of 133, almost 63% become negative at the end of 2 years, whereas in only multi-drug therapy group, 30 out of 120, only 25% become negative. Of both groups, so we took all untreated cases. 90% of the patients converted from lepromin negativity to positivity in the vaccine group, as against only 37% in the placebo group. So this is the final summary of the MW immunotherapy. And there are some of the pictures of clinical picture of the leprosis after 1 year, after 4 doses of vaccine, and after 8 doses of vaccine, almost it's cleared all the clinical lesions. So also our BL case, clear of all skin lesions at the end of only 2 doses of vaccine. That is the reason we are now giving and BT-BB cases also. One trial is going on JALMA. We are all associated, we are working on it. I'll show you also. One important finding I must show you, the induction of lepromin conversion and the bacteriological clearance accelerated decline in BIE correlated well with those patients who converted to lepromin positivity throughout therapy period and follow-up period as compared to the patient who remained lepromin negative. This was published in International Leprosy in 1999. Okay, this is it is published recently in British Journal of Dermatology. What we're trying now, we are giving this vaccine in BT-BB patients also. So we find the preliminary study shows there is a very good clinical improvement of these lesions as well as histopathology also, because most of the BT cases are skins were negative. So we depend upon more clinically and the histopathology. This project is going on at JALMA. Okay, so now this trial of MIB vaccine not only occurs with us, it has been done by PGI Chandigarh also, by JALMA Agra also. In a lesser dose they tried, 4 doses they tried with 1 year MDT. At JALMA Agra they tried 2 years with 4 dose vaccine, 6 monthly interval, and they tried in 3 month interval. And the same result, even they give 4 doses, there is a rapid fall of BI in that occurs in MIB vaccine group also. So summarize, if you look at the BCG vaccine also, almost it gives also similar result. It has been tried in PGI Chandigarh and also JALMA. The statistically significant difference in the time to achieve single negativity, granuloma clearance, reduction in the incidence of type 2 reaction, all observed when BCG is combined with MDT. To summarize, both MIP and BCG are potential vaccines when given as an adjunct to MDT, accelerate bacteriological clearance, clinical and histopathological upgradation, and lepromin conversion, but with variable efficacy. So it can be repeated every 3 monthly or 6 monthly. It can be given 4 doses or 8 doses, whatever you can push. This project we did among the contacts of the untreated MB patients. What we did a lepromin test to all the contacts of active cases. Those who are lepromin negative, we tried to give this vaccine 2 doses at 6 months interval to the contacts, lepromin negative contacts. And you'll be surprised to know that overall lepromin conversion occurred almost 98% cases. This project, this work prompted us, yes, this MIB vaccine can be used as a vaccine among the contacts also. So we applied PBT to extend of this project for immunoprophylaxis in the field. So in the field, we have taken this project to the Kanpur. They had about 4 lakhs population of the almost 20 villages, and we diagnosed all index cases. We gave the immunotherapy and MDT to patients, and their contacts we went and giving almost around 24. This was published in Leprosy Review, final 2005. Here we total 24,000 household contacts we took, vaccinated. 2 vaccines we give at 6 months interval, first dose and second dose. And the placebo, we give only 1/8 dose of normal dose of tetanus toxoid. Both placebo and vaccine were given under double-blind code. And follow-up we done at the end of 3 years, at the end of 6 years, at 9 years, and 6 years follow-up was done independently by the ICMR. And what they found ultimately, the protective efficacy of contacts received MW vaccine, almost 68% at the end of 3 years, 59% at the end of 6 years, and this protection came down at the end of 9 years. Probably this vaccine needs to be given a booster at the end of 5 years if you want to maintain the CMA response. So the protective efficacy when both patients along with MDT and contact, of course we try to give immunotherapy to the patients also, but there is a little difference between these 2 results. Even though you give patients immunotherapy along with immunoprophylaxis to their contacts, nothing. There's no much difference. Okay, so now the new, very new, a new vaccine is coming up from USA, a new subunit recombinant vaccine against leprosy. This is very interesting fact. Leprovac, we call it a hybrid recombinant protein linking 4 mLepre antigens formulated in a stable emulsion with synthetic toll-like receptor 4 against the GLASC as the adjunct. And there is a promising result in experimental animals in armadillo and mouse foot pad of mice. They injected Emlepri into their foot pad and they tried to inject this vaccine. They found it reduces the multiplication of bacteria in the foot pad and also in the armadillo, and it's already phase 1 is cleared. Now they are going to phase 2 trial. They are trying to compare the MW vaccine, this vaccine in Bangladesh and Nepal. Probably very soon, this phase 2 trial will be started very soon. But fortunately, any vaccine when you give, it takes a long time to give the result. So what we should do? How to stop the transmission quickly. Even vaccine, it takes another 5 years. So now why the post-exposure chemoprophylaxis came in leprosy? Objective for quick reduction of new cases by killing the AFB present in the close contacts of active leprosy patients at subclinical infection. Because when there is active leprosy patient in the community or in the house, the contacts they are exposed to bacteria for few months. So how to take that? If you could able to give some chemoprophylaxis, maybe rifamycin or something else, we can kill the bacteria present in the nasal cavity. You will not develop the clinical leprosy later on. There are almost WHO took a study of almost 6 to 8 countries, a systematic review done, meta-analysis done, chemoprophylaxis, single-dose rifamycin, efficacy of single-dose rifamycin for contacts of leprosy patients.
Sorry for the interruption, sir. Can we have a little faster?
Sir.
Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, sorry. So up to 2 years, what we find, a statistically significant reduction in clinical leprosy among the contacts. It's very interesting. Only single dose of rifamycin can reduce the in prevalence of leprosy by almost 60%. This is very but when you try to do from 2 to 5 years follow-up, there is low certainty evidence of reduction as compared to placebo. But however, after 5 years, there is non-significant reduction over 5 years. So probably this single dose vaccine works up to 2 years, but this single dose rifamycin chemoprophylaxis from 17. So after this result, our National Leprosy Reduction Program added 2 more strategy from 2017. One is single dose rifamycin chemoprophylaxis to the contacts, close contacts of index disease, stage by stage, and also they introduced MIB vaccine from 2018 in the project mode in collaboration with ICMR in Gujarat and Bihar. They started and they gradually cover other states. So this is a good thing. They have already collaborated chemoprophylaxis and immunoprophylaxis among the contacts in the right direction to reduce the new case detections. But what lesson we learned from SDR? From the multi-country research studies, what we find that is 60% reduction of new cases in the first 2 years. But if you study in detail, go deep into the papers, you will find the more protection is given by the only distant contacts, those who are not come in contact with the patient very frequently. However, in the very close contacts, particularly intrafamilial contacts, the protection is only 30%. This is nothing, 30% protection. So some contacts have a preclinical, probably some contacts have a preclinical infection beyond early stage of leprosy, of which SDR is not sufficient. Only single dose rifamycin may not be sufficient to prevent the development of clinical leprosy, because the rifamycin has a short life, only 3 hours only. In 3 hours, whatever the active bacilli, they will be killed, but the rest of the bacilli will remain. Because index cases, they are already in the family, and at least 2 to 3 months are required after starting MDT to become non-infectious. During that 3 months period, he continued to give infection to the contacts inside the family. So what what are the other additional limitation of SDR for chemoprophylaxis? I told you short half-life of rifamycin, only 3 hours, and protection around 30% among the close contacts, and chance of drug resistance. When you give one drug, monotherapy, there is always chance of drug resistance. We are going to give rifamycin in lakhs of populations. There may be development of drug resistance if you give a single dose rifamycin. These are the disadvantages of giving single dose rifamycin. Then what is the next step? We may need enhanced PAP post-exposure prophylaxis to increase the protection rate, number 1. And introducing the multi-drug chemoprophylaxis. Maybe one drug may not be sufficient. We may have to give 2 drugs with more than one drug, and at least for 3 months, because till the index case becomes non-infectious. So how to select the best multi-drug regimen for enhanced chemoprophylaxis? There is a first international technical expert committee meeting held in Amsterdam in 2016. From different countries, experts have been called for. I was called from India. So the Professor Grosset, and the chairman of Professor Grosset, he's the man who really did all experimental studies of multi-drug therapy, and Professor Smith and Sanderson, and from this is all eminent people from all over the world. They Mac and standing, and from Japan, from Indonesia, all we sat together, and almost 3 days we sat together and to find out what is the best treatment we can give in multi-drug therapy. And we try to see the anti-leprosy activity of the different drugs. We know the rifampicin factors activity is almost 3+, and moxifloxacin, another group among the fluoroquinolone groups, which is also bacterial activity almost 3+, and p-floxacin, ofloxacin, ofloxacin tried earlier, rifampicin with ofloxacin, the two drugs they found. This combination doesn't give much as compared to single dose rifampicin. So we didn't consider ofloxacin. We thought of again, clarithromycin is also a good drug under macrolides. We can use clarithromycin, we can use moxicillin as the second drug in addition to rifampicin or rifampicin. So after the 2 days.
Sorry again for the interruption, sir. Can you conclude?
It's the last slide. What could be the best combination of enhancer? So we advantage, we finally decided rifampicin and clarithromycin finally adopted for the trial monthly once. So rifampicin and clarithromycin has been decided. We should try this 2-drug combination for 3 months. And this protocol was already published in the infectious journal, BMC Infectious Diseases Journal, and this has been tried in India, Brazil, and Indonesia. This trial is going on now. Just everybody is waiting for the result of this trial. So this is the second, third international technical committee sitting in the Banaras. To conclude, leprosy is a critical junction. Zero leprosy is not just a catchy slogan. It stands for zero infection and disease, zero disability, zero stigma and discrimination. We need few new diagnostic tests for diagnosis of subclinical infection, and we are waiting for the PEP++ regimen result, and we are waiting for the result of new vaccine. In future, LepVax may provide a long-lasting line of protection, and zero leprosy is now a true realistic vision and not just a dream. Thank you very much. I am very much gratitude to Professor Harish Mohanty, late Professor Harish Mohanty, late Professor Kiran Balamanti, Professor PC Singh, Professor Vishnupriya Mohanty, and my colleagues, research officers, senior residents, postgraduate students for their constant enthusiasm, devotion to work with me. I am grateful to Professor Bhuta, Dean and Principal of SC Medical College, and Professor Prasenjit Mohanty, HOD Dermatology, for giving me this opportunity to speak in my parent SC Medical College. Thank you so much. These are my mentors, Professor Bhutani, Professor Talwar, Professor Mohanty, Professor Bedi, all I guidance for my research work from all these 4 people. Thank you very much for your patience hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Regret for interrupting, but as you know, we have little time constraint. I have to. Now,
Thank you, sir.
before I hand over again, just a minute, just before I hand over again to Professor Mohanty, our moderator, this is information to all the participants. Please post your questions in the chat box. There will be no direct face-to-face question answers. And our moderator will take up the questions and it will be answered by the speakers. So please, Professor Mohanty, take over.
Hello. Thank you, sir, for your nice presentation. Now our next speaker is Dr. Mayत्री Panda, who's the professor of some hospitals. And she's her work is mainly on pediatric dermatology and dermatotherapeutics, and she has done a lot of work on psoriatic therapeutics in psoriasis, and recently she has also published a paper on a review paper on cutaneous manifestations in COVID. So now she's going to present her paper on COVID-19 and Hansen's dermatology perspective. Please.
Thank you so much, sir. So I'm sharing my presentation.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yes, share.
So thank you everyone, and good evening. Before I start my presentation, a heartfelt thanks and regards to Professor Dr. Dateshwar Hota sir, the Dean and Principal of SCB Medical College, for giving me this opportunity, and my regards to all my teachers and faculties of the Department of DVL at SCB Medical College for giving me this trust and this opportunity to present in this pre-platinum webinars series of SCB Medical College. So to start with my presentation, seeing at these patients, what we have seen over this pandemic and over this lockdown era, large number of patients are presenting to us in a late manifestation, diffuse lepromatous involvement in the multibacillary pole, severe ENL and severe type 2 reactions, type 1 reactions, some presenting with severe necrotic ENLs. There is associated deformities, disabilities, social stigma, psychological and economic burden. So in toto, there is a huge impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the disease of Hansen's. As such, it was a stigmatized disease, and now it has added, the wounds have been further added, the salt has been further added to the wounds. So brief overview about my presentation. I will be going through briefly through the epidemiological and social impact of COVID on Hansen's, some challenges which we have overcoming, clinical, therapeutic, how to manage the reactions in COVID times, and about the clinical mimickers, COVID and Hansen's, they are overlapping clinical features, and whether to go ahead with the COVID vaccinations in active immunosuppressive therapy, in lepra reaction therapy, and have we seen the reaction flares in the current pandemic era. So coming to the epidemiological impact on leprosy during the COVID era, what we have seen that 70 to 80% of the global burden of the disease is from India, Brazil, and Indonesia. And ironically, what the statistics say, in 2019, the annual new case detection rate or the new cases of Hansen's were 22,000 cases. Whereas in 2020, there were only 8,720 new leprosy cases which were reported from India between April and September 2020. So this is last year's data. So what we have seen is a 63% decrease in the total, in the new case detection of Hansen's cases. And again, most importantly, the proportions of multibacillary leprosy and grade 2 disability amongst the new cases have increased by 20% and 12% respectively. So this is again something of large concern to the epidemiologist as well as dermatologist. And because of this grade 2 disability and deformity, which is in a higher proportion as compared to the new cases, which are much lower, there is a 60% reduction. And the similar trends have been also observed in Brazil, where there is 44% reduction in new cases. So some precipitating factors which we could find is the suspension of active case finding, travel restrictions, and the reduced healthcare services. So they have added to the burden. The disease identification have reduced drastically over these 1.5 years of this pandemic. The observed decrease in the number of new leprosy cases registered again indicates a major setback in the fight against leprosy, both at the national and at the state level. So this indirectly will increase the hidden prevalence of Hansen's, and the maintenance of the chain of transmission of the Hansen's in the community becomes unparalleled because of the loss of detection of the cases. And coming to the social impact of COVID-19 on the patients of Hansen's, the disease was already having a deep-rooted stigma, and further adding to the burden, because of the delay in the diagnosis in COVID-19 pandemic, there is an increased risk of physical disabilities, and adding to it, the financial and the psychosocial losses to the individual and also their family members. So what happens now is because of the social distancing and travel restrictions, isolation, the psychological or the psyche and of the patient is quite threatening because of the attached stigma, discrimination, loneliness, and isolation. So there's a huge social impact of COVID-19 on the patients of active patients of Hansen's. Now we have the recommendations of our association of Indian Association of DVL. This is self-interest group of leprosy, and they have suggested certain recommendations, like they have emphasized on the self-care techniques, which the home remedies in the patients. Patients should be educated on active and passive home-based physiotherapy and wound care, and also they should be also advised how to use the splints and supports. The use of social media platforms to increase the awareness about the measures that should be promoted by all the local and state governments and also the central governments, and that the teleconsultation and social media services should also provide psychosocial counseling. Now, very interesting concept, which I went through few literatures, and I found this very interesting concept of COVID-19, leprosy, and neutrophils. So this neutrophil, this forms the common pathway between COVID-19 and leprosy. So wherever we tend to have a link between two diseases, what we have seen in COVID-19 is a aberrant activation of the neutrophils in the peripheral blood. The blood workup of severe COVID-19 patients, they reveal a gradual increase in the WBC count. There is an increase in the absolute neutrophil count and the neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio. So similarly, what we have seen in type 2 reaction of the ENL patients of Hansen's is patients presenting in ELL, they too have a neutrophilia with a high NLR, that is neutrophilic to lymphocyte ratio, as well as raised WBC count. So from this point of view, they have an overlap of the common association of neutrophilia. However, from the clinical and epidemiological viewpoint, they have marked differences. And from the clinical, the differentiating features include the rise in D-dimer, ferritin, lung infiltrates in the CT scan finding, and hypoxia on a pulse oximeter, which are almost pertinent to COVID and are not seen in cases of Hansen's. Now, the challenges which we have faced during COVID era includes the clinical challenges. As a clinician, the most important thing which we have seen is the diagnostic difficulties and how to go around managing the lepra reactions, and some mimickers, COVID-19 presenting closely mimicking Hansen's. So these were our challenges. So why there was a challenge in diagnosis? Because of the decrease in the footfall of the patients. We have drastically seen the less number of patients during this lockdown era. So there were travel restrictions, and also there were fear of contracting COVID-19 from hospitals. And on the part of the clinicians and healthcare professionals, we usually miss the facial lesions of Hansen's due to use of mask, incomplete head-to-toe examination, and we usually see patient at a distance like 1 or 2 meter distance as per the guidelines. And there is inability of conducting diagnostic procedures like biopsy and slit skin smear. So these all pointers, they lead to a challenge in the diagnosis of Hansen's in COVID era. And also there are some clinical presentations of patients of Hansen's like fever and myalgia, which we typically see in a type 2 lepra reaction. And when they land up in an emergency department, in the current prevailing condition, instead of referral to a dermatologist, they are first evaluated for COVID-19 infection. So there are a lot of time, money, and a lot of constraints take over. And we usually, after 2 or 3 days, we usually admit the patient. And then also we have a fear whether the COVID-19 is completely ruled out. So there is a restriction of starting or initiating the treatment. So this is a huge boundary which we are facing in this pandemic era. Now, anosmia and hyposmia, again, these are the two findings which are common in case of COVID as well as in case of Hansen's. So as we all know, the olfactory dysfunction and significant reduction in the olfactory bulb volume were observed in the leprosy patients. Multiple studies have been undertaken. And in COVID, there is a neurotrophism and propensity of the SARS-CoV virus related microvascular injury to the respiratory mucosa and nasal mucosa, and that has led to anosmia and hyposmia. So there may be a slight confusion in cases who are mild COVID cases presenting with this, or Hansen's patient presenting with this finding. So there lies the confusion. Now coming to the management of leprosy in the context of COVID-19, and this recommendation is by the SIG leprosy of our association of IIDVL. And what they have suggested is all clinical patients should be treated and continued to be seen and managed in clinic or patient care. All healthcare institutes should continue to treat the patients following the COVID appropriate behaviors. accompanied MDTs in the healthcare centers, in the peripheral centers, PSCs, CSCs, and other institutes. They should supply the MDTs for at least 2 to 3 months to the patient to reduce the attendance at the clinic. And they have also suggested that all healthcare centers, irrespective of the primary registration of the patient, whether the patient has registered there or not, they should provide treatment to the patients. Acute surgical interventions like nerve abscess decompression, that has to be taken on priority basis. Otherwise, the elective procedures can be postponed. And the nerve function assessment, that is one of the most imperative and most important point in a case of Hansen's, which can lead to disability and deformity. So that part should not be neglected as on the part of a clinician. Now, coming to the therapeutic challenges, what we have seen in peripheral levels, the patients, when they come to us, they have already complained that their stocks of MDT are not easily available at the primary healthcare centers and block levels. And also the frontline workers, the ASHA workers, who were usually on the house-to-house survey of COVID-19 of the Hansen's patient, and they used to supply the MDT. They are all engaged in COVID-19 pandemic work. So they are neglecting our Hansen's patients. And there is a nationwide shortage of clofazimine drug since last 6 to 7 months, which probably all clinicians will agree. And the discontinuation of the MDT has been encountered in many cases. Many patients who have not turned up to the healthcare centers, they have discontinued their MDT. And for that reason, the disease has progressed. And there is a lot of challenges which has associated. Now, coming to the challenges in the management of lepra reactions, there are certain lab alterations in many patients, like in a multibacillary pole having a higher level of LDH and neutrophilia during the type 2 reaction. So they have a theoretical risk of acquiring COVID infection, because we all know COVID infection severity is associated with high neutrophil rates and serum LDH high. So there is a theoretical association. But also on the contrary, the elevated levels of gamma interferon in type 2 reaction has a favorable effect on the clearance of SARS-2 COVID viral load. So there are two contradicting statements from two different studies. Nothing very affirmative has come up till date, but probably down the years, we will be assured about this association of lepra reactions in COVID-19. And in patients of neuritis, moderate to severe degree of reactions, we should initially start oral corticosteroids without any hesitation, because COVID-19 risk will linger throughout. But for that, if we do not or defer the treatment of type 2 reactions, then the patient will land up in disability and deformities. So again, preferably the prednisolone dose, where the patients are already on steroids, should be gradually tapered to a dose of 20 milligram per day, which is not a very immunosuppressant dose. And they should be, according to the patient-to-patient basis, the treatment should be monitored. The use of thalidomide for acute control of type 2 reaction is one of the preferred drugs in recent times, especially in the pandemic era, which is a strong immunomodulator and anti-inflammatory drug. So we should use thalidomide properly in type 2 reaction. And also increasing the doses of clofazimine to 300 milligram per day is a good alternative in the long-term management of type 2 reactions. So once this clofazimine stock is plentifully available, this drug is really a safe alternative in type 2 reaction. A recent large-scale study have also identified clofazimine as a potential SARS-2 antiviral agent, but human studies further needs warranting this statement. So coming to methotrexate, less than 10 milligram per week is considered as a low risk and immunosuppressant during COVID-19 pandemic. So we can safely use this as a steroid sparing agent for the reactions, especially the type 2 reactions. But other immunosuppressant drugs like azathioprine and cyclosporin, which produce severe immunosuppression, should be avoided in the current pandemic era. Hydroxychloroquine, which has been advocated in the management of type 2 reactions, as per the recent ICMR guidelines, this drug can be given in the management of type 2 reactions as a steroid sparing agent wherever the reactions are mild or moderate variety. Now, coming to the clinical aspects, will the cases of leprosy reaction increase with COVID-19 infection? So again, multiple school of thoughts, multiple paper which has been published, and nothing conclusive or nothing authenticating have come up. So this studies which have come up, no study has yet determined whether Hansen's patient have higher or lower risk of acquiring COVID-19 as compared to the general population. And what was anticipated in 2019 was that since infection is a known trigger for lepra reaction, it was expected that lepra reactions will be a rise in COVID-19 era. However, as this pandemic has reached almost to the end of second wave, no large studies have been published or shown that this association is there of COVID-19 infections increasing the risk of lepra reaction. This was a study which was published, a series of 6 patients having both Hansen's and COVID-19. And they have also said in the conclusion of the study that using steroids for the type 2 and type 1 reactions, usually had a sustained cytokines response resulting in an uneventful COVID-19 illness. So what they have told is that continuing with the steroids and other immunosuppressants, it's quite safe in COVID-19 illness. And there was a less stormy and uneventful course in the COVID-19 era of the patients, and even the COVID-19 did not affect the course of the Hansen's in its active phase. Now again, another study published in the European Journal of Dermatology in 2020, and here they have a report which is opposite of what the previous reports say. The study of 4 patients of Lepromatous Hansen's with comorbidity and COVID-19 infections, and in all the 4 patients associated with COVID-19 had a fatal outcome. So each of the patient died due to COVID-19 associated with Lepromatous Hansen's. So this was published in 2020. Now coming to another study which was recently published in International Journal of Infectious Diseases, where they have shown that severe type 2 leprosy reactions with COVID-19 have a favorable outcome despite the continued use of corticosteroids and methotrexate. And this hypothesis which they have put forward is, it was proposed that type 2 reactions are associated with increased gamma interferons mediated inflammatory response, and gamma interferon has a role in the clearance of SARS-2 COVID virus. So because of this gamma interferon, which is a mediator which reduces the SARS-2 COVID viral load, so what they have possibly postulated is that the type 2 reaction patients may have a natural protection against severe COVID-19 infection. So probably few more studies or larger studies can establish this. And other studies have also said there is least mortality in Hansen's patients affected with COVID-19. So coming to the clinical case scenario, this patient was recently admitted with us, presenting with ENL, high-grade fever since 3 to 4 days, and there was a sudden right foot drop. This patient was a case of Lepromatous leprosy on MDT. It was an earlier diagnosed case, but sudden fever since 4 days. So we had an alarm bell among us whether it was a COVID-19 case. We did all the blood parameters where there was 95% neutrophilia on the differential count with a raised WBC count. They were increased marginally the D dimer and the ferritin levels. So what happened is we waited for 2 days after the RT-PCR report came. Then only we could start steroids in this patient. So those 2 days were very valuable. The patient was having fever with chills and rigor, and there was a lot of malaise, myalgia. So what happened as a clinician, my hands were bound not to start the steroid without a RT-PCR report. So this is the constraint with the clinician face in the current scenario of COVID-19 pandemic for treating the ENL or lepra reactions. Another patient, this old man presented very late with severe type 1 reaction. You can see there is a supratrochlear and supraorbital nerve thickening on the face with diffuse edema and erythema. So it is like, it is not that the COVID-19 has caused this, but what has happened is the patient usually presents late because of this COVID-19 restrictions of travel. So patient do not land up to the healthcare facility in the right time. And this interesting man, this young man, he blamed everything on the mask. His version was wearing mask led to this type of reaction. So this was a BT Hansen's with a type 1 reaction. And throughout his history taking, he had his only blame was on the mask, that mask pehen ke ye sara kuch hua. So that is the problem. So these patients needs a lot of counseling and a lot of advice properly to not to lose the mask wearing habit. So as a clinician, we needed to counsel this patient that there is no relation of the mask with BT Hansen's. So finally, the patient was convinced, but I don't know how far they'll maintain. The such type of patients put the clinicians in a dicey situation. Again, a patient of BT with type 1 reaction, and after taking the vaccination of Covaxin, there was a BT type 1 reaction flare. So this is again not reported in literature, but this patient, we could find a flare on the facial plaque. This case report I could find, there was a dapsone-induced methemoglobinemia in Hansen's case, which was presented as a happy hypoxia in COVID-19 pandemic. So the patient was a BT Hansen's, which was taking MDT, and soon after dapsone was initiated, within a month, there was a hypoxic, because nowadays what happens is everybody just has this pulse oximeter at home and they keep on maintaining or regulating their saturation. So this patient presented, and this was case report, which was published in Europe, GADV. And this is one of our patient who was admitted with BL Hansen's, presenting with DRESS, and he was COVID positive. And what happened is this DRESS was due to some anti-inflammatory drug, and he was also continuing with the MDT. So finally, after almost 2 to 3 weeks of treatment, there was complete recovery of the COVID, which was actively managed. Then the DRESS is the drug hypersensitivity syndrome. So we initiated with the higher doses of methylprednisolone in 500 milligram pulse doses, and there was active management of the COVID. And then we tapered to oral steroids, and the MDT was continued, and the patient is quite okay and doing well. There's no other side effects or no other disabilities in this patient. So this image was sent to me, this case was sent to me by Professor Jayashree Mahanti ma'am, and they have seen this patient presenting very late. Initial complaint was headache and this eye lesion and this huge plaque on the forehead, and the patient visited neurologist and did multiple investigations. And finally, when it landed up with ma'am, she could diagnose a case of BT Hansen's with type 1 reaction. There was a large plaque on the forearm, and it was also inflamed, tender, and very edematous. So again, this is one more constraint that patients are presenting late to us. There are multiple factors. We cannot take care of those factors because that's the prerogative of the government. But what, as a clinician, we need to counsel, we need to treat at the first go. So, and a few case reports of Hansen's mimicking COVID-19 disease, like cutaneous vasculitis and maculopapular rash, like a MIAC in children, also in adults, we see maculopapular rash. So presenting with fever, which can mimic a type 2 reaction in Hansen's patient. And again, about the happy hypoxia and dapsone-induced methemoglobinemia that I have already mentioned. And the last part is COVID-19 vaccination in Hansen's patients. So what happens as a dermatologist, we give a lot of immunomodulators and immunosuppressants. So all the published reports and all the data, RCTs, they have definitely found out a decreased immune response and vaccine immunogenicity decrease in patients with systemic immunotherapies. However, there are no specific guidelines or recommendations for patients of Hansen's regarding the COVID vaccination. If you are on oral steroids less than 20 milligram per kg per day, then there is no significant suppression of the vaccine immunogenicity. If the methotrexate dose is more than 10 milligram per kg per week, then it is a problem. Then we should not go for active vaccinations. Cyclosporin and MMF, again, it is seen in renal transplant patients, there is a severe impairing ability to mount a protective immune response in vaccines. However, there is a least chance of immune suppression in dermatological doses because we use cyclosporin and MMF in a lower dose as compared to the transplant surgeons or the nephrologists or other faculties. So there the risk of immunosuppression is less. And weighing the risk to benefit to risk ratio, what has been advocated is the temporary withdrawal of immunosuppressants 2 weeks prior to vaccination and 2 weeks post-vaccination. So that is the area where you need to advise your patient, whoever calls you, teleconsultation, whoever comes and asks for a physical advice, that whether we should take a vaccine or not, then there should be a 2 weeks period where there should be a window period of withdrawing of the immunosuppressants before giving the vaccination. And again, those patients who cannot stop the immunosuppressant drugs, there you have to check the titers after vaccination. So probably a booster dose may be required to establish or maintain protective antibody titers in those patients. So the take-home message is concurrent COVID-19 infections in Hansen's patients is common, but active phase of COVID has no effect on the clinical course of Hansen's disease. Elevated LDH and neutrophilia is seen in MB poll of Hansen's, and that may have a greater risk of acquiring severe forms of COVID-19. Doses of immunosuppressants used for lepra reactions has a minimal effect on the adverse outcomes in the coexisting COVID infection. And MDT, active management of lepra reactions with immunosuppressants and COVID vaccinations must be uninterrupted in the ongoing pandemic. So thank you very much. And before ending my presentation, I would extend my sincere, heartfelt gratitude to my teacher. And this frame has two iconic dermatologists of IDBL Odisha, our patron, Professor Dr. Haris Mahanti, and my teacher, Professor Dr. Prasanjit Mahanti, sir. So right now I feel like a superwoman because sir has given the trust and he believed in me so that I could present in such a prestigious platform for the SCBN alumni. So thank you very much, sir. And I would also pay my regards and respect to the faculties of the department, my teachers, Jayashree ma'am, Swapna Jana ma'am, Manjulata ma'am, Monalisa ma'am, Swapna Behra ma'am. They have all been instrumental in my postgraduate period. My sincere gratitude to my teachers who are no more the faculties of SCB, Minati ma'am, Basanti madam, Sitka sir, Binodini madam, Tanmay sir. Without all your guidance, without your inspiration, we would not have been where we are today. So thank you very much, all the participants and delegates. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. And I cannot end this presentation without thanking my postgraduate student, because now I have become a teacher. So thanking my postgraduate student, Dr. Akash Agarwal and Dr. Fareen Begum, who have helped me immensely put forward their efforts for this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the nice presentation. I request our moderator to please ask 2-3 questions from the chat box. Then we conclude because we have already overshot the time.
And before I take the question, I should tell you that Dr. Hemanta Kara and Dr. Maitri Panda are our proud SCB alumni. The first question is by Dinesh Ranjan Panda. That is to Dr. Hemanta Kara. Should we, the doctors treating the leprosy patient, take post-exposure chemoprophylaxis? That is rifampicin, and how frequently?
Yes, thank you. Our actually multi-drug chemoprophylaxis trial is going on. Combination of clarithromycin and rifamycin. We give monthly once for 3 months. Because you know, in a single dose, will not be very effective. You have to combine at least for 3 months, monthly once you have to give to make them negative. If at all they are bacteriologically positive among the positive contacts.
And he was talking about the doctors, I think, themselves, sir.
Yeah, they can give. Yeah, yeah, they can take. There is no problem. They can take the medication, rifamycin plus clarithromycin, monthly once for 3 months.
Okay, sir. Thank you. We'll take the next question. Next is.
We add BCG vaccine.
So should we add BCG vaccine 3 monthly to leprosy patients having BI less than 4, more than 4 plus?
Normally we give
the vaccine not easily available in Odisha. This is why it's not work.
Yeah, you can give BCG also. BCG also equally good. If BCG is available, you can give monthly once for 4 doses for rapid bacteriological clearance. If still BI is still positive after the end of 1 year. When you are extending another 1 year MDT, you can combine it with the BCG vaccine.
So this is the last question I think I'll take. So this is my Mrutyunjay Mahapatra to everyone. So which diagnostics test you will recommend for subclinical infection where PPL and ELISA is being done?
Yeah, unfortunately, whatever diagnostics has been already done, ELISA and PGL, LED also, none is found to be very much specific and sensitive. Particularly for posivacil leprosy, we are not finding a good test to confirm the diagnosis of posivacil even subclinical infection also. Still, we do not know. We do not know because you know the M-leprosy has so many antigens. They try to combine 3 to 4 antigens of M-leprosy together to get the best report sensitivity, but they failed so far. So far, they failed. Whole world has failed to find a good diagnostic test to detect either subclinical infection.
Okay, sir, then I think we'll stop it here and I'll request Professor Jayashree Mathur to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of SCB Medical College, along with Department of Dermatology, SCB Medical College, I have the proud privilege to express my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Hemanta Kaur, the eminent dermatologist and leprologist, an old alumni from this college, finding out time from his busy schedule to enlighten us in this with his vast knowledge in one of these age-old diseases like leprosy. I feel very happy and proud as well to thank Professor Maitri Panda, who is like our own child, and welcoming her to this institution for sharing her knowledge in leprosy in context with pandemic COVID-19, which will certainly be beneficial in future management of the disease. Words will fall short to thank our ever enthusiastic, dynamic Dean and Principal, Professor Datteshwar Hota, for his constant support and encouragement and providing such platform for academic interaction. I will fail in my duty if I don't thank our immensely talented, multifaceted HOD, Professor Prasenjit Mohanty, for his active involvement in each and every activities of the department. And it is my honor to thank all the esteemed participants from inside and outside our institutions for participating in this event and making this CME a successful one. Last but not the least, I must thank our telemedicine in charge, Mr. Devasis Panigrahi, for his assistance in conducting this CME smoothly. And also I take this opportunity on behalf of SCB Medical College to invite all the alumni to join this Platinum Jubilee celebration in the recent days. So I just can conclude that this is long live SCB and SCBians. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And on behalf of the institution, I thank all the speakers and participants for giving us the honor. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.